What happens when Britain's most outspoken television host comes face to face with the world's most controversial royal exile? You won't believe what unfolds when Meghan Markle sits down with Denise Welch on Loose Women, thinking she's in for a sympathetic chat about her struggles with the British media. What she got instead was a verbal dismantling that left viewers across the nation with their jaws on the floor and social media exploding with reaction clips that are still trending hours later. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when these two powerhouses collide on live television. Last night's episode of Loose Women started innocently enough, with the familiar purple and pink set gleaming under the studio lights as the panel took their positions. The atmosphere in the ITV studios felt different, though. There was an electric tension in the air that even the production crew could sense. Denise Welch, never one to shy away from controversy, had made it clear in the pre-show briefing that she had some pointed questions for their high-profile guest. Meghan Markle swept onto the set wearing a cream-colored blazer and that practiced smile we've all come to know, her security detail positioned strategically just off-camera. The audience applauded politely, but there was something restrained about their response. Perhaps they could sense what was coming too. As she settled into the guest chair, adjusting her posture with that familiar, calculated grace, the cameras captured every micro-expression. "Welcome to Loose Women," Denise began, her voice carrying that trademark directness that has made her both beloved and feared in equal measure. "We're absolutely delighted to have you here, Meghan. I have to say, you look radiant." The compliment hung in the air for just a moment before Denise's expression shifted slightly, that telltale glint appearing in her eyes that regular viewers know means business. Meghan launched into what seemed like a well-rehearsed opening about her recent charitable endeavors, her voice taking on that carefully modulated tone she's perfected for public appearances. She spoke about women's empowerment, mental health awareness, and her commitment to making a positive impact in the world. The other panelists nodded along supportively, but Denise remained noticeably quiet, her fingers drumming silently against her cards. "That's all wonderful," Denise interjected when Meghan paused for breath. "But I think our viewers are probably more interested in hearing about some of the more, shall we say, challenging aspects of your recent public statements." The studio fell silent. Even the cameramen seemed to freeze in position. Meghan's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before snapping back into place. "I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're referring to, Denise. I've always tried to be authentic and honest in my public communications." "Authentic?" Denise leaned forward slightly, her voice taking on an edge. "That's an interesting word choice. Because I've been watching some of your recent interviews, and I have to say, there seem to be some rather significant inconsistencies in your storytelling." The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Meghan's posture stiffened, almost imperceptibly, but Denise wasn't finished. She pulled out a printed sheet from her notes, making a show of consulting it. "For instance," Denise continued, her voice growing stronger, "in your Netflix documentary, you claimed you knew virtually nothing about the royal family before you met Harry. But then we have multiple reports from friends saying you were obsessed with Princess Diana, had books about the royals, and even visited Buckingham Palace as a tourist years before you met your husband." Meghan's laugh sounded forced, brittle around the edges. "I think there might be some misunderstanding there, Denise. I never said I knew nothing about them. Just that I didn't grow up with the same level of awareness that someone British might have." "Right, but that's not quite what you said, is it?" Denise pressed on, clearly having done her homework. "You specifically said, and I quote, 'I didn't grow up knowing much about the royal family. It wasn't part of conversation at home. It wasn't something that we followed.'" She looked up from her notes with raised eyebrows. "That seems pretty clear to me." The other panelists exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the interview was taking. One attempted to interject with a lighter question about Meghan's children, but Denise wasn't having it. "No, I think we need to address this," she said firmly, her northern accent becoming more pronounced as her passion increased. "Because this matters. When you go on international television and make claims about racism, about being silenced, about not getting help when you needed it, these are serious accusations that have real consequences for real people." Meghan's composure was beginning to crack slightly, her hands fidgeting with her wedding rings. "I shared my truth, Denise. my lived experience. I think anyone who's been through what I've been through deserves to have their voice heard. Your truth? Denise's voice sharpened. See, that phrase right there, that's what bothers me. There's not your truth and my truth and their truth. There's just the truth. And when your truth involves accusing an entire family and institution of racism without providing a shred of evidence, well, that's not truth. That's defamation. The audience was dead silent now, some looking uncomfortable, others leaning forward in anticipation. The production team could be seen frantically gesturing off camera, clearly torn between the television gold they were capturing and their concern about how far this might go. Meghan's mask slipped entirely for a moment, her eyes flashing with anger. I think you're being incredibly unfair, Denise. I never accused the entire family of racism. I was very careful about what I said. Were you, though? Denise shot back without missing a beat, because the impression left with millions of viewers worldwide was exactly that. And now we have Commonwealth countries questioning their relationships with Britain. We have people making judgments about individuals they've never met based on your carefully crafted narratives. But what happened next would make this confrontation legendary, and viewers were about to witness something that would change the trajectory of both women's careers forever. Meghan straightened in her chair, her media training kicking in as she attempted to regain control of the narrative. Denise, I think you're being deliberately inflammatory here. I came on this show in good faith to discuss my charitable work and my experiences as a mother. Oh, did you now? Denise's voice dripped with skepticism. Because according to your people, you specifically requested to come on after our discussion about media treatment of public figures last week. You wanted to set the record straight, didn't you? Well, here's your chance. The camera caught Meghan's jaw tightening, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide the flush creeping up her neck. I don't appreciate the ambush tactics, Denise. This isn't journalism. This is tabloid sensationalism. Tabloid sensationalism? Denise let out a bark of laughter that echoed through the studio. That's rich coming from someone who's made millions from telling her sob story to every media outlet that'll have her. Oprah, Netflix, podcasts, books. You've turned victimhood into a bloody industry. The other panelists looked mortified. One tried desperately to steer the conversation towards safer ground. Perhaps we could talk about your recent trip to... No. Denise slammed her hand on the desk, causing everyone to jump. I'm sick to death of tiptoeing around this woman like she's made of glass. She's weaponized her mental health struggles. She's weaponized racism. And she's sitting here acting like she's above scrutiny because she married into the royal family for 5 minutes. Meghan's composure finally cracked completely. How dare you, she hissed, her voice rising to a level that had never been heard in public before. How fucking dare you sit there and minimize my experiences. You have no idea what I went through. The studio erupted in shocked gasps at her use of profanity on live television. The director could be seen frantically signaling to cut to commercial, but Denise waved him off with a sharp gesture. There we go, Denise exclaimed, pointing at Meghan triumphantly. There's the real you, not this polished victim narrative you've been peddling. You want to talk about what you went through? Let's talk about what you put that family through. I put them through? Meghan was fully animated now, her hands gesturing wildly. They hung me out to dry from day one. They wouldn't protect me, wouldn't defend me, wouldn't even acknowledge that their precious institution had a racism problem. Racism problem? Denise was on her feet now, towering over the seated guest. You mean when someone wondered what your baby might look like? Christ, Meghan, my mother-in-law wondered the same thing when I was pregnant. It's called conversation, not conspiracy. Don't you dare trivialize what I experienced. Meghan shot back, also standing now. You weren't there. You don't know what it was like to be the only person of color in that family. Surrounded by all that tradition and protocol and barely concealed hostility. Barely concealed hostility? Denise's voice reached a new level of incredulity. They gave you a multi-million-pound wedding watched by billions. They gave you titles, patronages, a platform bigger than you could have ever dreamed of. And you repaid them by running off to California and trashing them on international television. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Camera operators were moving in closer, sensing they were capturing television history. Social media was already exploding with clips and reactions. But neither woman seemed to care about anything beyond their heated exchange. Meghan's eyes were blazing now, all pretense of royal composure abandoned. "You know what, Denise? This is exactly why I left. This aggressive, dismissive attitude toward anyone who dares to speak their truth about that archaic institution. You're just another sycophantic royalist who can't handle the fact that your precious monarchy isn't perfect." "Sycophantic royalist?" Denise laughed harshly. "Love, I've criticized the royals plenty over the years, but I draw the line at destroying people's reputations with unsubstantiated claims. You've painted Harry's father as a racist, his brother as a bully, and his stepmother as a villain, all without a shred of proof." "I don't need to prove anything to you." Meghan's voice was shaking with rage. "I lived it. I breathed it. I tried to kill myself because of it. And I'm sorry you went through that." Denise's voice softened for just a moment, before hardening again. "But using your mental health crisis as a weapon against people who can't defend themselves publicly is absolutely disgraceful. You knew exactly what you were doing in that Oprah interview." The audience was completely silent now, mesmerized by the verbal warfare unfolding before them. Some looked horrified, others thrilled by the raw authenticity of the confrontation. This wasn't the sanitized, media-trained discourse they were used to seeing from public figures. Meghan took a step closer to Denise, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that the microphones barely caught. "You know what your problem is, Denise? You're a bitter, middle-aged woman who never achieved anything close to what I have, and you can't stand it. You're jealous that I had the courage to walk away from a life that was killing me." The studio fell dead silent. Even the crew stopped what they were doing. Denise's face went completely still, her eyes narrowing to slits. When she spoke, her voice was deadly calm. "Well," she said slowly, "I think our viewers have just seen exactly who you really are, haven't they? The mask has well and truly slipped now, hasn't it, love?" Meghan realized she had gone too far, but the damage was done. The cameras had caught every word, every expression, every moment of her unguarded fury, and what happened next would ensure this confrontation would be replayed for years to come. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before Denise slowly sat back down, her eyes never leaving Meghan's face. When she spoke again, her voice carried a weight that made everyone in the studio lean forward. "You know what, Meghan? Thank you. Thank you for finally showing everyone who you really are underneath all that polished PR bullshit. Because that, right there, that vicious personal attack, that's exactly what you did to Harry's family, isn't it? The moment someone doesn't give you exactly what you want, you go for the throat." Meghan was visibly shaking now, whether from anger or the realization of what she'd just done. It was impossible to tell. I didn't mean." "Oh, but you did mean it," Denise interrupted, her voice gaining momentum like a freight train. "You absolutely meant every word, just like you meant every calculated revelation in that Oprah interview. Just like you meant every carefully timed leak to your favorite journalists. You're a master manipulator, love, but you finally met someone who sees right through you." The other panelists sat frozen, knowing they were witnessing something unprecedented. The show's producer was frantically gesturing from the wings, but nobody seemed willing or able to intervene in what had become a gladiatorial combat of words. Meghan attempted to regain her composure, smoothing down her blazer with trembling hands. This is exactly the kind of treatment that drove me away from this country in the first place. The aggressive press, the character assassination, the complete lack of empathy for someone who was clearly struggling. Struggling? Denise's voice reached a new octave. "You were struggling so much that you managed to negotiate multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Spotify before you'd even officially left the royal family. You were struggling so much that you had time to brief journalists and plant stories while you were supposedly suffering in silence. That's not. You're twisting everything." Meghan's voice cracked with desperation. "I was trying to protect myself and my family." "By destroying theirs?" Denise shot back instantly. "By accusing them of racism on the biggest platform in the world? By making Harry choose between his wife and his entire family? That's protection, is it?" The raw emotion in Denise's voice was palpable now. This wasn't just professional anymore, it was personal. "Do you have any idea what you've done to that poor man? He's lost his relationship with his father, his brother, his friends. He's isolated in California, completely dependent on you, and you've made damn sure he can never go back. Meghan's facade was crumbling completely now. Harry made his own choices. I never forced him to do anything. Didn't you? Denise leaned forward menacingly. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you gave him a series of ultimatums. Leave the family or lose me. Cut ties with his past, or I'll make your life hell. Choose between them and me. That's not love, Meghan. That's emotional blackmail. The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Even the camera operators seemed to be holding their breath, afraid to miss a single moment of this unprecedented television moment. Meghan's eyes filled with tears, but whether they were tears of rage, frustration, or genuine emotion was impossible to determine. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know our relationship. You don't know what we've been through together. I know enough, Denise replied coldly. I know that every single person who's gotten close to you has eventually been discarded when they stop being useful. Your father, your half-sister, your childhood friends, Harry's friends, his family. There's a pattern here. Love, and it's not a pretty one. That's enough. Meghan suddenly exploded, her voice echoing through the studio. I don't have to sit here and listen to this character assassination. This is harassment, pure and simple. She began pulling off her microphone with shaking hands, her movements sharp and aggressive. This is exactly why I left this toxic country in the first place. The press, the establishment, people like you who are so threatened by a strong woman of color that you'll tear her down any way you can. Oh, here we go again. Denise threw her hands up in exasperation. Everything's about race, isn't it? Can't possibly be that you're just not a very nice person. Has to be because you're a woman of color. Has to be racism, sexism, anything except personal accountability. Meghan was on her feet now, fumbling with her earpiece. I'm done. I'm fucking done with this country and everyone in it. The expletive rang out clearly across the studio, causing several audience members to gasp audibly. Good, Denise called out as Meghan began walking toward the exit. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And maybe next time you'll think twice before coming on a British television show if you can't handle British directness. But Meghan wasn't finished. She spun around at the edge of the set, her face contorted with rage. You know what, Denise? You're everything that's wrong with this backwards, racist little island. You're bitter, you're jealous, and you're absolutely pathetic. No wonder your own son can barely stand to be around you. The reference to Denise's well-publicized family struggles was the final straw. The veteran broadcaster's face went completely white, then flushed red with fury. Get her out of here, Denise roared, pointing toward the exit. Get this vicious, manipulative cow out of my studio before I do something I'll regret. Security personnel appeared as if from nowhere, clearly having been on standby for exactly this scenario. But Meghan was already storming toward the exit, her heels clicking sharply against the studio floor. This will be the last time I ever set foot in this God-forsaken country, she screamed over her shoulder. And when the history books are written, everyone will see exactly what kind of people you really are. The only thing history will remember, Denise called after her, is that you came on my show and showed everyone your true colors. The mask is off, love, and there's no putting it back on. Meghan disappeared through the studio doors with a final slam that reverberated through the entire space. The audience sat in stunned silence for several seconds before someone began to clap, then another, and another, until the entire studio was filled with applause. Denise stood there breathing heavily, her chest rising and falling as she tried to process what had just happened. She looked directly into the main camera, her eyes still blazing with intensity. Well, she said finally, her voice hoarse from the confrontation. I think that tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? Sometimes the truth hurts, but it needs to be said. We'll be right back after this break. As the show cut to commercial, the studio remained electric with tension and excitement. Production assistants were already on their phones, knowing they had just captured one of the most explosive television moments in recent memory. Denise remained at her desk, still processing the magnitude of what had just occurred, while the other panelists sat in shocked silence. The confrontation was over, but the reverberations would be felt for months to come. Social media was already exploding with clips and reactions, and news outlets around the world were preparing their coverage of the interview that had laid bare the real Meghan Markle for all to see. It was television history in the making, and everyone who witnessed it knew they had seen something truly extraordinary.